So yeah, by the way, apibot.ai was free. We figured like, hey, that's a great name for a new product, so let's do this. But you might ask, like, why chatbot? Well, the fact is, and this is a very simple graph, there is more happening on any messaging platform than there is on social media platforms. So there is more people using Messenger than using Facebook. And that shows something, it's namely that a lot of people use chat, use conversations in their daily lives. It's a very natural way of interacting with each other and with other services, for instance. And as you can see, probably it's going to, like, the gap is going to be bigger over the years to come. So it's a trend, and it's definitely something every company should take into account and do something about. And that's also where Jaco comes in the picture, because when Jaco started working for apinf, we had a lot of ideas bouncing off to each other, and we had some really good times. And one of the things Jaco was like, yeah, chatbot, that would be really, really cool if we could do something about it. I don't know what, prototype, whatever. Let's just do something. And at that point, I was looking into chatbots for another project, and I was like, that shouldn't be too difficult, you know? So what we did basically is something like this. Right. The time when we started, it was still white outside, so it's kind of fit. So we just went head on with it. I told our CEO, like, give me a week or two and I'll get something ready. And here's the result. So basically, this is something today. I actually made the screenshot today. We have a chatbot on Slack. You can say hello, and it's going to say good morning to you. It's a very polite chatbot. But it can do a lot more. And you have to see this in the context of a Swagger file of a developer asking for well, information about a certain API, so documentation. So first of all, that's also a bit like, you need to give the capabilities of what can this chatbot do. So you can say, like, okay, what can you do? Can you help me? And it will say what the scope is of this chatbot. So basically, you can show all the APIs it has, you can add more, and then you can ask some documentation, some information about a certain API. All right, well, simple. Sometimes it doesn't work, and then you need to repeat yourself and hope it works. It goes quite okay, then it will answer you, like, for instance, at this moment we have the obvious pet store. Who knows pet store here, by the way? Pet store is the Swagger example that you will find everywhere. Uber is the other Swagger example, slightly less popular, but still good. So yeah, well, here's two APIs. Let's use pet store. So okay, it asks what you want to know about pet store. And then you can say, well, I'm interested, what objects do you have? So we have user, pet, order, and so on and so on. And we're working still continuously on this. I tried, hey, would be cool here to add some buttons so you can just click instead of type. And then that works. And it will give you, for instance, for pet, the documentation that is defined in the Swagger file. Right? It works, right? So there is a lot more information you can ask. So generic description, contact details, the license. You can ask about the paths and operations as well, and so on and so on. And I'll get a bit more into detail about technology, but first of all, what if you want to make your own chatbot? And that's where I was at the start of those 2 weeks. So first of all, you need to choose a platform. You know, chatbot, there is NLP, natural language processing. There is a chatbot environment. There is a whole, well, UI thing around it where you also need to train and so on and so on. And there is a lot out there. This is by far not a complete list. Personally, what I liked a lot was with AI and API AI. They were pretty complete in the sense that they combine both NLP and the whole chatbot environment into a package that actually works. The others, I tried quite a few, just didn't stick for me. Eventually, I went with api.ai for a couple of reasons. I got it working. You know, that's also part of the developer experience. When you try something out and you actually get something that works within the next, well, Jaco would say 3 minutes. It's like you feel like a god. You're like, ha ha ha, I can do this. But also it's an environment that is backed by big money. So they got a couple of millions investment. There was good documentation. So same thing again, developer experience. And a quite active community as well. So there was a forum, there was activity, and there were the developers of API.ai actually responding to people's requests. So very quickly, the core of API.ai is intents. So basically it is when a user says, help, what are you going to do? And then you can also give some other examples. It doesn't say help, but can you help me? What can you do? And so on and so on. So by just giving some examples for every intent, it will also learn by itself, so that if you phrase it a little bit differently, it's still going to understand it. Also very important is context. So basically, for instance, here, when you say use pet store, it's going to remember that context of, okay, we're talking about pet store here. So you don't need to repeat that every time, like, hey, use pet store, give me the objects. You know, it's just like, I'm using pet store here, now show me this, show me that, and so on. And it will remember that. Very useful as well. Then, very important as well as the training part. And this is where we still need to improve a lot, because this is a very fresh project. So basically, we need to understand what people ask. Now, I kind of like this aspect to it. So whenever you ask something in our Slack channel to the API bot, I'm going to see that. I'm going to see what you're asking. Kind of interestingly, so far, a lot of people try and break a bot. Very interesting as well. Very often at this stage, it still works because it's not trained yet. But then we learn, right? So you get better at it, and you can fix a lot of things. A designer's dream, because it can track everything and it can improve longer. So in this case, basically, it's like, okay, I got this request. I thought it was this intent, and this was the answer. Is that good? And you say, yeah, good job. If it wasn't good, you can then change it and kind of, you know, point it to the right direction. Or if the user asks something and you're like, hey, didn't think of that, you can then start creating new intents and improve the chatbot over time. By the way, also no deployments needed or something. Again, developer's dream there is like, you just, you know, click, change a few things and your bot works. It's really nice. Right. Now, obviously, that's just a chatbot, so it's Slack and you can talk and it will answer you a few things, but obviously there's a backend needed as well. I'm almost old school, I would say. I really like Django, so Python framework. Basically, that's what I've been using for a while now. There's a cookie cutter which allows you to just, you know, start with a project. It works. You can deploy it in Heroku. You can go very fast. Good thing as well is we're using a Swagger parser library from Python. All open source components. Use that one, and I was good to go. By the way, also this part is open source, so if you want to check it out, feel free. I have to admit, like API design-wise, it's horrible, for the simple reason that API.ai only allows one API endpoint, and it needs to be a post. So my Swagger file would look very silly, because it's like, here's the only endpoint you can use. We're doing all the business logic in the backend. But yeah, it works. That's the way it goes at the moment, and they're still improving it as well. But yeah, so basically it's a big if then else structure. It's nested, but we're working on it every day as well. But one thing that I really thought was very interesting, and I'm going to give you a second to read this. And well, if there's anyone online, yeah, you can read this too. So basically the idea with chatbots is that we'll have to learn a lot of new things again as designers. A lot of people, when you say design, associate it nowadays with web design. Right? You make a website, a web app. And then there is some very clear, you know, design guidelines defined. You have a menu and white space and yada, yada, yada. And all of that is actually irrelevant here because it's just chat, which is a very natural way of communicating, of interacting, but it also needs their own set of rules. So you need to give kind of clear error messages. If you ask something and the bot doesn't understand, you need to direct the person to the right direction. You also need to give clear context, like, hey, where are we at this moment? And so on and so on. It's something that I need to learn a lot as well still, but I'm very intrigued by this because it's also it's a gold rush. Wild West, we still need to learn a lot and define the new rules in the chatbot world. And then finally, well, after those 2 weeks, we had something running, and then we were talking with Jaco, like, hey, why not sell this? That's my business side to it. What I've learned so far as well is like, hey, when you have something, you don't know for sure, is there any value to it? Try and sell it. If it's like not ready yet, it's a good sign. And then at that point, make it ready. Don't make it perfect and then figure out no one wants to buy it. For us, it's also a good way to gather feedback that way. So, well, we're asking you money. Are you happy? Are you you're taking out your wallet already? Well, that means we're not asking enough, right? So it's a good way to get feedback. So we have our website up and running in here. Everyone can try it out. So you can get an invite on our Slack environment and then just start talking with our apibot, who's called Borisovna, by the way. You can talk about life with her as well. Good thing is the first bot is for free. So if you ever want to just, we have an API, we want to use this chatbot because it's cool, you don't even have to pay for the first one. So yay. And that was it for me.